So there was a story by Dave McMenamin that came out on ESPN this week, and it's talking about the trip to China. Number one, it talks about the fact these guys got on a plane on a Monday and then didn't know what they were flying into. That's BS, because we talked about this last week when we taped the show. I sent you the notes on Sunday night, partly after the NFL games, and we had this story in there that we had to talk about. So these guys knew that they were going into something, and they all have media around them in terms of their consultants and their teams. All these guys have these brands now. That's complete garbage. I'm not buying that at all. So then Adam Silver gets there, and the first question that LeBron has isn't on the situation. It's, is Daryl Morey going to be punished? Because if a player sent a tweet out that cost the NBA millions, they would be punished. So is he going to be punished? That's his first question to Silver. And I was shocked, Eric, that Silver's response was, well, we didn't say anything and we didn't fine you when you went after Trump. I was shocked that that came up. And then you get to the point of one Laker was upset because they lost $1 million appearance deal. Okay, well, who the hell do Chinese people want to see? It's either got to be LeBron, AD, or maybe Kuzma if they're desperate for a star. I mean, nobody's paying $1 million for KCP to come there, right? I don't think so. Or Alex Caruso. So it had to be one of those guys. So you know this story is getting fed in from Clutch because it's probably one of their two guys that are going to get paid $1 million to go show up at something. So they were probably pissed off about that. And then you get to the fact of LeBron not wanting to deal with the media. Well, we shouldn't have to deal with the media if the league's not going to do it. Daryl Morey's not here. We shouldn't have to do it. LeBron has a show on HBO where he wants to talk about social issues all the time. He gets paid to have a show where he gets to go on and say whatever he wants to say. And now he's in a situation where he could step up and be this world ambassador that he wants to be, this mogul. And all of a sudden he doesn't want to speak. Eric, just nothing made sense from this guy. It's one of the reasons why I started out liking LeBron early in his career when Cleveland drafted him, watching him fight for those Eastern Conference titles, and then just watching these mistakes that he made along the way. And now he's been elevated, and he's sort of self-elevated himself, because LeBron's the same guy that will talk about himself in the conversation as GOAT, where most other people are waiting for others to bring that up. He inserts himself into that. He inserts himself into every issue that comes up in the United States over the past couple years. And here's the biggest story that's hit the NBA probably in the last 5 years or so. And he doesn't have a comment, takes 10 days, and then he comes out with this. And then the cleanup is just as bad when he has a whole team around him that's supposed to help him do this. And this is what they craft. Doesn't make sense. And it leads to all this criticism because he looks like a hypocrite. He looks like a guy that if it's good for him in that it affects his wallet positively, he's all about it. These guys, there is no consequences for them. This is swimming in the ocean and all the sharks are caged off. They can do whatever they want to do and they don't have to worry about anything. There is no consequences for them. Don't have to worry about what Nike's response will be. Don't have to worry about what any other sponsor's response will be. Everybody is in love with it. Now, all of a sudden, everybody knows it's a little dirty secret about China, but they do business with them anyways. LeBron's got a moment where he could talk about freedom, humanitarianism, what's going on with Hong Kong, and he doesn't do it. And in fact, even the people of Hong Kong, they felt like LeBron turned their back on him. And that's why they're burning his jersey over there and why that whole country seems to have turned their back on him now because of what he said. Eric, when you talk about what Muhammad Ali did, and you've heard LeBron say that he wants to be the new version of that, Muhammad Ali threw everything away for what he believed in. I don't see that LeBron is that guy. And this further proves that LeBron is willing to say whatever he can when there's no consequences. But if it's going to affect him from a business standpoint, you're not going to get the same LeBron on those issues. And I just think if you're going to be front and center on stuff and your wallet is what guides you, that's just wrong.
Yeah, I can't really argue that. And I've been sitting here listening to you, and I think you made a lot of good points. And I think, look, it's a different day and age, certainly, than it was with Muhammad Ali. But I will say this about Muhammad Ali, whether you like him or don't like him, he always tried to stay consistent to his values of what he believed in. And we're not bashing LeBron because he has a liberal point of view on this, that, or the other, and we may or may not agree with his social politics or economic politics or whatever. People have the right to their opinions, and just because they're athletes or famous business people or whatever doesn't mean that they can't have an opinion and we can't disagree with it. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is he has a chance with his platform to align it morally and consistently with other things he's talked about here in the United States, like some of the immigration issues or some of the things he said about Trump, whatever, just line them up. And yet here we have a humanitarian crisis over in Hong Kong, and he aligns with seemingly the side that's going to not cost him the most money. And so, yeah, I think that's the issue I have with it. And I think you're right on that. It's like either just be quiet or side with the side like the Hong Kong protesters that aligns with what you side with over here in the States. That to me is where I get driven nuts. And look, there's a lot of hypocrites in the world. I know I've been a hypocrite at times in my life, but to me, politics can get so hypocritical because it is always about what is the most benefit to you first. He stepped in it. And so now he's got to live with that.
Yeah, it's all about, for me, it's about consistency. Look, I don't agree with everything that LeBron says, but think about this. He said of Daryl Morey, he shouldn't have sent that tweet out. He could have waited a week. So what would it look like with, say, Trayvon Martin, for example, if LeBron waited a week before wearing sweatshirts out onto the court? Or the I Can't Breathe, where he was involved in that as well. What if LeBron waited 7 to 10 days on every issue to speak out because he wanted to let it cool off and he didn't want to have any backlash from it? He would never do that. He's front and center on nearly everything that happens almost instantaneously. Social media has built LeBron into this image and this hype that he is on this stuff because everybody wants to know what LeBron's going to say. And he sends out a tweet and he gets all these likes and comments and replies and retweets. And he looks like this social savior. Muhammad Ali never got to do that. He wasn't covered in that way. If you start to think about what he would have looked like in today, he would have blown LeBron away in terms of what people thought of him for standing up for what he believed in. My issue with LeBron is just there's no consistency. And when you're going to, again, when you're going to stand on your soapbox and you're going to point down at everybody for everything that happens in this country, whether you're educated on those events or not, and sometimes LeBron comes out and says things that you feel like they're totally off base, or he doesn't care if he's offending 60 million voters by calling them stupid, and he gets away with it. And then he doesn't want to do that because of Nike's involvement with China, his personal involvement there, the fact that it's a cash cow for a lot of companies here in the States that they do business there. And he doesn't say anything at all, and he doesn't back the people of Hong Kong that he's willing here in the States to do. That lack of consistency is what drives me crazy. It's not that he speaks up or doesn't speak up. It's that he's wanted to be the voice of reason in the States for forever. Really, ever since the whole Kaepernick situation, if I feel like LeBron kind of wanted to take the ball and run with it. Then when he's got an opportunity to take kind of the next step, he doesn't want to do it. That's my issue with LeBron. And look, we've talked about it a lot. These athletes, they want to get involved in politics up until a certain point, and then they want to jump ship. And it's like you're either all in or you're not. I think now at least we know.
Well, and I'm surprised during the
stands.
Cowboys segment, speaking of liberal politics, they're now attacking one of their own liberal points of view in Ellen DeGeneres because, what, she sat next to President George Bush? That's the most important thing for CNN right now is, well, what did you think about Ellen DeGeneres sitting next to former President George Bush at the Cowboys game? Well, what I think of it is that your message is coexist and appreciate everybody and accept people, but she can't sit next to someone at a football game and smile and share a laugh. We have to hate. We can't even sit near each other without hating. No, that doesn't seem to align with your whole coexist movement, unity, love each other. So you want to have these liberal points of view. That's fine, but then don't be a hypocrite. And that includes LeBron James.
Well, that'll wrap us for segment 2. When we come back in overtime, we're not going to talk about sports anymore. We're going to talk about who Eric sat beside at lunch today. Just kidding. We're actually going to talk about NASCAR and the fact that Chevy only wants their drivers to play with each other, or the fact that there could be some consequences if they'd help another manufacturer. I'm going to turn Eric loose to rant about that when we come back for overtime. All right, we're back to close out episode 308. We've got overtime. Let's talk about the NASCAR playoffs, what happened in Talladega on Sunday and then into Monday, because like every good NASCAR race, there has to be a rain out, it seems like, and it makes Eric and I scramble to tape these things and watch them and didn't get to comment on them. So we didn't get to watch this one together, Eric, but this was a wild race. But because of what happened with Sunday and the rain and the delays, it gave the reporters a chance to snoop around and started getting more and more information on what was going on with these manufacturers, specifically Chevy, that they were holding a lot of meetings, even had a debrief during the delay where it came out that they had talked about almost having a presentation, talking about how choppy the racing was, how at one point there was 3 Chevys, 3 wide for the lead, and that they didn't want that to happen. They wanted Chevys pushing Chevys, helping each other, taking care of their playoff cars. Then I saw Corey LaJoie have a tweet that came out for him on a podcast that said there was actually consequences for a Chevy driver if they would push another manufacturer across the line for a win, that they could lose their personal ride from Chevy, could lose sim time with Chevy. So, Eric, look, we've known that manufacturers play a role in this sport. We've always heard that there's one Ford and they want to help each other. And the Toyotas and Chevys actually had some kind of alignment earlier because there were so many Fords. That got all broken apart. But I feel like it got ramped up to a different level this weekend at Talladega, where Chevy really was trying to control what was going on the racetrack with their drivers, and even having this sort of stick mentality that if they didn't align with what Chevy wanted, that there was consequences from it. So with all this breaking, what are your thoughts on what is going on with these manufacturers' roles, specifically Chevy in this situation with NASCAR?
Well, tell me,
right now?
Justin, when you have Alex Bowman jumping up in front of a Ford because he can't let the Ford in front of him, and you're just only halfway through the race. You're not on the last lap. You're just halfway through the race. You're putting these drivers in a bad position, right? Because how did that turn out for Alex Bowman? Not very good.
Not very
Here's
good.
the thing. I understand this is restrictor plate racing. And for those of our listeners who aren't big NASCAR fans or don't follow this, there's a little bit to know about racing for understanding why I'm so upset about this. And it's a couple of different things. Number one, what I've always liked and appreciated about NASCAR is you've got logos and you've got brands and you've got individual drivers who have their own careers and they're racing their own cars. And they're going out there and trying to win. And yeah, they're employed by teams that might have 2 or 3 or 4 cars, but they all have different logos. They all have different drivers. They all have different crew chiefs, and they're all trying to win races. At the very heart of NASCAR, that's what I've always loved when you compare it to things like F1 or F2, where some of these teams just have 3 or 4 or 5 Ferraris, 4 or 5 Mercedes. And it's all about, well, we got to get this guy the win this week. And it's got to be a Ferrari that wins this race. I have never liked that. I think it's dumb. I think when you have team orders, it's dumb. It takes some of the racing away. You're just trying to organize a finish rather than actually race the car. Now, when you implement that kind of system into a plate race, into a restrictor plate race like a Daytona or a Talladega, which we have already talked about, where the fans love these races. And I got to admit, when I got home from work on Monday and I pulled it off the DVR and watched it, it was a heck of a race. I mean, I don't know what my heart rate was, but it was definitely higher than normal, even just sitting on the couch, because I appreciate the fact that these guys are going 205 miles an hour, 4 inches apart. The cars are going all over the place. It is fun to watch, but the drivers hate it, or at least a lot of them do. They hate it because they know that the big one or many big ones is always coming. So here's my rant and here's my point. When you employ a strategy of team orders and manufacturer orders and different things into a plate race where these guys are already on the edge of sanity with what the cars can do, you are putting them in a very, very dangerous situation, more so than they're already in. These guys put their lives on the line for these fans 4 times a year. Now, I understand there's 36 races, but at Daytona and Talladega, which they each go to twice, these guys are putting their lives on the line 4 times a year for our entertainment. And now, in the back of their mind, when they're trying to make literally millisecond split decisions about going high, going low, do I block, do I not, do I stay here? They're trying to read the air off the car in front of them and back of them and the side drafting. And again, if you don't understand racing, I understand that. But this is the most difficult form of auto racing at 200 plus miles an hour. And now you're going to force these guys to think about one more thing, which is, oh no, I can't let that guy by me because he's in a Ford or a Toyota and I'm in a Chevy. Oh no, that guy's in front of me. I got to get around him. So I got to make a dangerous maneuver, or I've got to go up a lane, or I've got to do this. they're making decisions that no longer have to do with their own safety and their own ability to get that car around a 2.5 mile oval